Hey, welcome to the More Life, Less Drama podcast. I'm your host, Prue Sulisic, and I'm here to lead you to a more fulfilling and peaceful life. This is not some fancy podcast bringing you extraordinary stories. I'm just here keeping it real, raw and honest, so you know it's possible for you too. I want you to know yourself so well, nothing stands in your way. So let's get to it. Life is waiting. G'day. Welcome back to another episode of More Life, Less Drama. Well, you'd be interested to know, maybe not so interested, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not meant to do this episode because literally I have recorded this episode. I think this is my 7th time and I get 3/4 of the way through and all my technology fails. So I'm attempting it again using a different thing because, well, if you're trying to do the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity if you think you're going to get a different result, which, hey, I tried 6 times using the same thing, and now on my 7th time, I'm back to an old version of what I used to do for my podcast in the past. So I'm, recording this and hoping that it works, because I want to get this podcast out to you this week. And tell you what, the universe is like, please don't. Maybe it's something that I shouldn't be doing, but I'm just like forging ahead no matter what. So universe, if you're trying to stop me, good luck, because you're definitely not. Talk about being unshakable and resilient in this moment. Doesn't mean I'm not cursing at the same time, but I tell you what, I am determined. And this actually might be a good intro into what we're talking about today, because what we are talking about today is burning down your own house and then complaining that you don't have anywhere to live. And this is all about self-sabotage. So think of it like this. You've dreamt about building your dream house for maybe decades. And you've got this picture in your mind, what it's going to look like. You've finally got the funds and the most perfect block to build this beautiful dream house of yours. And the builders have started. They're out there, they're laying the bricks one at a time, getting this house of your dreams built for you. And every time the builders go home, you go up there and you kick down the walls that they've built. That is what self-sabotage looks like. I know it's a bit of an extreme example, but that's what it actually looks like. It's you sabotaging your dreams. And if you've ever heard yourself say out loud, or ever heard yourself say, I know I'm getting in my own way, that's the example. You're kicking down the walls of your house that is being built. That is your dream. You have put blood, sweat, and tears into saving up for this dream house, yet you're kicking down the walls every time the bricklayer builds one. So how are we going to change it? How are we going to stop you from self-sabotaging? And we're going to walk through today and we're going to give some examples, and then we're going to figure out where you're self-sabotaging. And then I'm going to give you some simple tools to overcome it, because even though everybody's self-sabotage is slightly different, the good news is that overcoming it is exactly the same. So I've got all the tools and strategies for you to help you overcome it, which is great news. All it requires is a little bit of self-compassion and discipline. And because I want to say this straight up as well before we get to the end, that attached to this episode is going to be access to my free mini course called Build Unshakable Proof. And I'm telling you now because, as you know, I'm all about taking actions. If you're not doing anything different and you're like crying out for change, but you don't change any of your behaviors, well, nothing's going to change, my friends. So that is why I've created this little mini course. It will take you no longer than 20 minutes to go through, but it will give you some great strategies to actually show up and build the proof in your life that you can finish the things that you say you're going to finish. So jump in and get that course and just run with it and just start your journey, because you've got to start somewhere, right? Time is going past no matter what. So you may be using the time productively and by learning how to do something that's going to help and support you to achieve your goals, because I'm all for you achieving your goals. That is my number one goal in my life and in my business, is to help you achieve your goals. So jump in, get the course, and yeah, run with it and tell me how it goes. Okay, so on to self-sabotaging. Who uses the term self-sabotage? I know that I don't particularly use the term, but I know a lot of people do. But let's just understand what self-sabotage is. And we're just going to go to the Oxford Dictionary for the definition. And the definition says, behavior or thoughts, especially of an involuntary or unconscious nature, that are harmful to your own interests and development. Amen. That's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about knocking down our own house when the builders are building it. It's like you really want something, yet you're doing so many things that are preventing it from happening. I wish that we could just show up and have our action plan and our things that we know is going to work, that will get us to our goals, like to the end of our goals. But it's not always the case. We learn things through our lives that actually prevent us from taking the action or consistently taking the action. And I just want to give you an understanding about why that happens. It happens because usually between the ages of 0 and 7, which is the time of our life where we absorb a lot of information and we really cement in a lot of our unconscious beliefs. And so something happened in those formative years where you maybe felt unsafe, unloved, unworthy, scared, like fearful of something, and you did something. You took an action and you did something, whether it be eating, hiding, shouting, whatever you were doing, and it made you feel better. And therefore your brain's like, hold on here. Wait, did that just make me feel good? Well, if that did make me feel good, and it did make me feel better, it made me feel safe, it made me feel calm, it made me feel loved, it made me feel happy. Well, let's just keep doing that. And so every time that you do something that causes a negative emotion, your brain just goes, hey, just do that thing that made you feel happy before. And so you're like, okay. And so you just do the thing that made you feel happy. So this might be different for everybody. This is where it varies from person to person, because I'm just going to share my own example. And I know that what made me really happy in times of like a little bit of stress was eating sugar. So if I was having a moment of like worry or fear or being a bit scared or nervous, and believe me, I was nervous a lot, I would go to sugar to make me feel better. So Mars bars were my best friend. I loved a Mars bar. And so the Mars bar would just make me feel happy. So as an adult, I know my brain still says to me, hey, like if you're feeling sad, just go and have some sugar. It'll make you happy. And I've got to create new habits and take new actions and form new behaviors, because eating sugar all the time is not ideal. We know that, right? So just think right now in your own life, where are you showing up doing an old habit that is, forcing you into a place of most probably happiness when you're doing it, but you know that it's not good, that it's sabotaging the goal that you actually want to achieve. So let's think about some actual real life examples now. And we're going to just start with the whole losing 10 kilos. Like most people out there that I know are always looking after their health. So let's just say that you want to lose 10 kilos and you're like, okay, so I know the steps that I need to take to lose 10 kilos. But then something happens and you're like, you know what? I feel a little bit sad today. Getting my period, my hormones all over the place. Maybe I've got a headache. Maybe I've had an argument with my partner. And you're like, I'm just going to go to do the thing that makes me feel good. And you do it unconsciously. You don't even realize a lot of the time you head to the fridge, you head to the pantry, you're in the car driving to the shop or the servo, you're getting delivery for Macca's. All of a sudden you're there, you're eating the chips and you're like, so good, like so happy, got some chips or got the Mars bar or got the shake, whatever your flavor is. And you're feeling happy, but then you're like, oh, holy shit, wait there. I'm not supposed to be eating this because I want to lose 10 kilos. And if I'm eating chips, look, I'm going to blow out my goal for the week. But you do it unconsciously. Like, how many times have you stood at the fridge, looking into it, staring into the fridge, going, just want something. I don't want a carrot. Definitely not. I just want something sweet to make me feel good. Well, this is the self-sabotage. It comes in unconsciously. You don't even know it's happening. Maybe you've got a business, and I see a lot of business owners through my coaching practice, and you know that what you need to do to make sales is have an ad, put an ad out, do an Instagram reel, or do a radio ad even. Maybe you just need to make offers, get people on the phone, have a conversation about what you offer to somebody, yet you're doing everything else but that. And then you're like, boo-hoo me, I've got no sales coming in. And you might be just like creating things behind the scenes, doing social media that doesn't really make an offer, definitely not putting your face on social media. So that's you sabotaging. You really want your business to succeed, yet you're unwilling to feel uncomfortable to get there. And so you do things that do feel comfortable, like, oh, well, I'm great at creating social media content. I'm great at creating courses or documents or PDFs or things like that. Pretty things. I'm great at that. But I'm not talking to people and saying, hey, I have this. Would you like to buy it? So that's self-sabotage. Maybe you want to go to the gym and you're like, right, that's it. I have been instructed by my cardiologist or my doctor, or I just want to feel better in myself. Like, I really want this. I really want to lose those 10 kilos. I really want to build muscle tone. I want to fit into the bikini or the bathing suit or the dress or whatever it may be. And you know that going to the gym is going to make you feel better and it's going to support you on your journey to better health. Yet, when you're doing your schedule, you put everything in there and then you're like, oh, there's just no time. I've got no time to go to the gym. And so you just don't go. And you use the excuse that you have no time. Yet, P.S., you're the one that created your own schedule. You could have fitted it in somewhere, but you just chose not to. That's you kicking down your own house. Self-sabotage. Is this starting to sound familiar? Am I touching on any points that you might do in your self-sabotage journey and in your life? And look, there could be countless ways. Maybe you're a writer and you're not writing and you use the time excuse again. Maybe you're wanting to run a marathon. Like, I've got a friend running a marathon or training for a marathon right now. And maybe you're not doing the thing and showing up for your schedule as somebody that's going to run a marathon needs to do. So just take a moment right now and think to yourself, what goals do I have and where am I self-sabotaging? I'm getting you to do this, not to be hard on yourself or beat yourself up. No, that's not why we're doing this, but it's about awareness because, as you know, awareness is so key in understanding how to make changes. Because if you don't have an awareness about it, how do you know what to change? The antidote, my friends, is so simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple. And the antidote to self-sabotage is self-compassion plus discipline. Self-compassion plus discipline will help you overcome self-sabotage. And when we're looking at self-sabotage, we generally look at these 3 points. This is how it shows up a lot. So just keep in mind that the antidote is self-compassion and discipline. So when we're thinking about these things, just, go to the opposite end of the spectrum of what self-compassion and discipline looks like for you in these scenarios. So there's procrastination, always putting things off. That might be your flavor of self-sabotage. Maybe you have a lot of doubts and negative self-talk. So you always beating yourself up. Well, how can the opposite be true? How can you be self-compassionate plus disciplined to choose new thoughts for yourself? Maybe you've got this fear of failure. I have so many people that say to me, oh, I don't want to make a goal because what happens if I fail? And they're like, definitely don't want to write it down because, well, then everybody will know that I failed it. It's like sabotaging your own success by not even allowing yourself to write it down. So if self-compassion and discipline is the antidote, where can you make some changes in your own life that will support that process? Because it really is easy. And achieving goals is easy. And I say that, oh, yeah, it's so interesting when I say that. I'm like, oh, achieving goals is easy. It's like a whole new belief system, right? Because I bet you're believing, if you haven't achieved any goals yet that you really want, you're most probably believing, oh, achieving goals is so hard. It's almost impossible. But when you believe that you can achieve goals easily, things change. You're like, oh, yeah. And if you don't have a fear of failure, things change even more because you're like, well, I just need to show up again and again and again until I figure out and fail like 50,000 times before I actually get to the end result, what I want. It's definitely what I'm doing in my life. Failing a lot, failing over and over and over, and being determined and disciplined and self-compassionate to keep going, even though there's lots of failure. It's totally okay. Failure is great when you're trying to figure out and get to your goals. If there is no failure, you're just not trying hard enough. So let's now think about how you can actually put self-compassion and discipline into your life to get the results that you do want. So I want to encourage you to reflect on your past behaviors and identify those patterns of self-sabotage. That's the first thing, like the awareness piece. Always awareness first. And once you recognize those behaviors, you can become aware of them and then you can address them head on rather than beating around the bush all the time, especially pointing the finger out at other people, trying to make something that's in your control someone else's problem. And that's actually an interesting concept. I was actually thinking about this on my walk this morning. You know, the circle of control, there's things that you can control and things that you can't control in life. Like there's always things that you can't control. But in the circle that you can control, it's like you pretending that you can't control those things. And that's what self-sabotage is. So we have to really take ownership of the things that we can control. Our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. That's what we can control. And so when you're in the stage of just identifying all the things that happen in your life that you can control, but you're sabotaging, you're like, okay, I get this now. I can see what I'm doing in my own life that is stopping me from having the results that I want and achieving the goals that you want, right? So the awareness and understanding what behaviors are self-sabotaging, first step, always first and foremost. And then it's about practicing the self-compassion. It's a two-step process, so simple. So the self-compassion looks like you witnessing your own behavior from a compassionate observer perspective. So it's like you standing at the fridge, eating some chocolate, and then all of a sudden you like wake up from your fog that you're in, like the unconscious fog, and you're like, oh, wait there, what am I doing? I'm eating chocolate and I want to lose 10 kilos. No, that doesn't really go with what results that I want. So what can I do right now in this very moment? And I'm curious, what are you thinking right now in your own mind that you can do in that very moment, standing at the fridge, gorging on chocolate when you've got a 10-kilo weight loss goal and you want to go to, oh, stupid, shouldn't do that. Why do I always do that? Instead of that, what are we going to do instead? We're going to say to ourselves, I see now. I'm standing here eating chocolate and it's not aligned with my goal. What's the next best thing I can do right now? And maybe the next best thing is to be like, you know what? It's okay. It's totally okay. But is this going to support you towards your goal? Bring yourself back to the awareness. Bring yourself back to the goal that you've got in mind, that you're working towards. And once you get that, you can actually be really compassionate with yourself. I don't want you to be mean. I want you to treat yourself like you would your best friend. You wouldn't call out your best friend and call her names and be nasty. You would be like, come on, it's okay. It's okay that that happened. But what's the next best thing that you can do right now? And maybe we're just going to walk away from the fridge. We're just going to go back to our plan. We're not going to binge now because we've thought, well, you know, I've stuffed up now. I may as well just start tomorrow. It's like, no, I can still stick with my plan for the rest of the day, even though that happened. It's okay. I'm still learning. I'm still unraveling this self-sabotage and I can figure it out. That's what it looks like. So step 1, awareness. Step 2, self-compassion. And then there is the third step actually, which is discipline. It's like doing the same thing over and over again and not thinking that there's an end date to it. There's no end date to self-compassion. There's no end date to awareness. You just have to keep showing up, being aware and self-compassionate, and be disciplined with that. Just draw a line in the sand today and say, you know what, I'm never beating myself up again about something that I didn't even realize I was doing. Okay? Be nice to yourself. That's what I want you to do. Because ultimately, what you're doing here is you're building new habits. The habit that you were taught back when you were a young child, most likely, it doesn't have to be then, it might have been recently, and that's okay too, but we can unlearn that habit. And if you've ever heard of James Clear and his book Atomic Habits, he talks about this a lot, and I highly recommend you going to read it or download it as an audiobook because he has got some great techniques to help you overcome toxic habits and implementing new habits. And this is what I want to leave you with today. It's you have to do something new, like swap it out. Don't just stop doing something. He encourages you to swap it out. So you know how we were at the fridge gorging on chocolate just earlier? Instead of saying to yourself, I'm never going to have chocolate again or anything sweet again, it's like swap it out with something that you can have and ease your way into the new habit. So it's like breaking an old habit, but replacing it with something that's a better option. You've heard people do this all the time about swapping stuff out. And so this is part of the process as well. Because when we're self-sabotaging, it's just an old habit. I want you to think of it like that from now on. This is an old habit that you're undoing and you can create new habits around. So what can you swap out for your self-sabotaging behavior that can be helpful to achieve your goals? I heard someone recently telling a story, and I cannot for the life of me remember where I heard this story, but it was basically somebody had a father that smoked cigarettes and he always smoked them in the car. And so every time he got in the car, he would pick up his packet of cigarettes and would start just chain smoking. And he wanted to stop, but he had no idea how to because he was so addicted to the cigarettes. He was so addicted to the habit. He didn't realize it was the habit. But then someone said to him about replacing it with something. And so he tried it. So instead of putting his cigarettes in the door, he actually put lollipops in the car. And he showed up and he sits in the car and the habit is to grab something and put it in your mouth. So instead of grabbing a cigarette, he started just to grab the lollipops and put it in his mouth. And you know what? He never went back. That stopped him from smoking because there was the trigger of the car and then the habit of just picking up the cigarette and doing the behavior. And he changed the behavior to something that's better because let's face it, sucking on lollipops is measurably better than smoking. And eventually, if he wanted to stop sucking on the lollipops, all he has to do is swap it out with something else. It might be like a gradual process. So that's always a great example. And here's the last thing that I'm going to say to you about creating habits that will help you undo the self-sabotage. Because remember, this is a recap, self-sabotage is you doing things unconsciously that sabotage your success rate for your goals. And so the last thing that I want you to do, don't just do these new habits for a week and think everything's going to be fantastic. I want you to think about this for the long term. I encourage you to show up for 30 days, but day by day. And the Build Unshakable Proof is going to help you with that, because it will help you build your tolerance to making small changes, one small change at a time. Doing these things over a longer period of time. Again, not thinking that there's an end date on this, not thinking, okay, once I figure this out, I'm never going to have to think about it again. I like to think about these things as maybe they're going to be always there, and I'm always happy to work on this for the rest of my life. That's a really great mindset to have. Like, I know it might be overwhelming for some people to think, oh God, really? I really got to work on this for the rest of my life? But if that means great health, why not? If I've got to work on not eating Mars bars for the rest of my life, it's totally okay. And P.S., I'm never going to not eat a Mars bar ever again. It's not about perfectionism here. It's about consistency and doing things most of the time, not 100% of the time. So according to science, and I was reading a blog post from James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, and he was saying that there's this theory out there that changing a habit takes 21 days. And it actually wasn't what was shown, but you know how some things, it's like Chinese whispers. One thing gets said and then it gets said to another person, and all of a sudden it becomes gospel. The actual fact is, to change habits can take anywhere between 66 days and 254 days. That's what they found when they did this really comprehensive study. So that's between 2 months and 9 months. That's a long stretch of time to change a habit, which is why you've got to have the mindset of the long haul. This is not a quick fix. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It might take a year to do. And like I said earlier, time is passing anyway. You may as well be putting in the reps to do something that actually is going to be worthwhile and meaningful for your own life, that's going to support you. Remember, nobody else wants to achieve these goals for you. Your goals are your goals, and so you've got to figure out how to show up for them no matter what. So I want you to leave this episode thinking about, how have you been burning down your own house, and what behaviors are really sabotaging your success rate for your own goals, and how you can show up with the awareness to understand what's going on firstly, and then the self-compassion that will allow you to make these changes one day at a time over 254 days. That's a lot of days to be self-compassionate. And again, it's not going to be perfect. Failing is fine as long as you keep the discipline and keep the commitment to yourself and show up each day like you're committed to achieving the goal of undoing all your self-sabotage. Because I want you to achieve your goals. Even though I said that you're the only person that wants to achieve your goals, well, actually I lied, because I really want you to achieve your goals too. So if you're interested in what behavior is self-sabotaging for your own goals, take this episode and spend some time afterwards figuring that out. And of course, jump onto my free course and go through the 3 quick lessons so you can build the change tolerance that you need to make the changes in your life that is going to support the life that you want for the long term. Remember, people, it's all about the long term, no quick fixes here. Okay, so that's it from me. And I know that this was a brief episode, yet I feel like I've said it about 1,000 times already because it took me so many goes to get this episode to you. But I'm really glad I did, because I really want you to understand your own self-sabotaging behavior and to change it so you can live the life of your dreams. Okay, my friends, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.